Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022, and today is my first video post 2022 midterm elections. And the first question I have for all of you watching this video is, what the hell happened? The House of Representatives is a composition of 435 elected delegates. We know this. We know this from our civics courses, that this is the body of the American electorate, or I guess the American representative system, that is up every 2 years. And knowing the circumstances of where we were yesterday in the national generic ballot, with Republicans being up by 3 to 4 points, with President Biden being down 10 to 12 points, we expected the Republican Party to have at least pickup opportunities across the United States, and thus winning those pickup opportunities. You see, looking at where we are in these new results, we are in a point of shock. I personally have been shocked by the sheer amount of Democratic victories last evening. The Democratic Party, quite frankly, has shocked the nation. And I say that because the House of Representatives should have been an automatic Republican pickup. That's because the House majority that Democrats currently have is the narrowest of any party in the 21st century, and the narrowest for the Democratic Party in nearly half a century. The reason why that's significant is because it shows that the Republican Party should have had a complete and total pathway to victory regardless of the election results, as long as the polls were at least somewhat accurate. And it isn't even just the polls. As long as they were able to capitalize and gain off of their own redistricting wins, they should have been able to win the House. The Democrats in 2020 lost every single competitive seat, and that was with a Biden victory and a Democratic victory across the Senate. That's why, on my end, I have been saying since the very beginning that I expected Republicans to win House control. Not one point in time did I ever say Democrats were the favorites to win the House, because quite frankly, that's not what it made out to. That's not what we had seen when it came down to the data, when it came down to the expert ratings, when it came down to our fundamentals about Biden's approval and the generic ballot. But after last evening, I can say personally that I am shocked by the results that we see across these House races. Not only have Republicans failed to capture control of the House outright, we still have a number of districts that should have been automatic and immediate GOP victories that have still yet to be called. And some very important races that were never even expected to be competitive. Don't even get me started, though, on the United States Senate, where in my final prediction, I had the Democrats losing Pennsylvania, and last evening, they won it. And the reason why I was very apprehensive about John Fetterman's chances at victory here was because everything seemed to be moving in the direction of the Republicans, including the FiveThirtyEight forecast, which historically has always overestimated Democrats in their forecast in the state of Pennsylvania. Has always overestimated Democrats. So when they said Dr. Oz had a 57% chance of victory, as someone who has historically as well overestimated for Democrats, who was I to say to defy the odds that the Democrats were going to win? In addition to that, all of the polling turned around in favor of Oz. He led in the average by the end of it. That did not happen for Trump in 2016. Biden was supposed to win by 7 in 2020. He won by 1. Right? So when I see that shift, the inaccuracy of the polling in the past, I could not trust the Democrats' lead at that point, or even now. At that point, I saw an Oz lead, which told me to feel more secure in my prediction. But last evening, not only did John Fetterman defeat Dr. Oz, he did so by a larger margin than Biden did in 2020 over Trump. And by the end of all of the votes being counted, take a look at what is still remaining. Philadelphia County, with just 83% reporting, this lead is likely going to be a Fetterman 5-point victory. In addition to this, we also can talk about the governor races, where the Democrats are leading in Arizona. They are winning in Kansas. This one's just recently called by CNN and MSNBC. The New York Times has yet to call it, but the Democrats have won Kansas. The Democrats have won Maine, Michigan, New Mexico, New York. All of these states, Pennsylvania by 13 percentage points, and given the outstanding vote, will likely be a safe margin of victory. In Pennsylvania, a Biden plus one state. The Democrats also won Wisconsin in a huge shock to many people across the country. So what I see from the results last evening is that the red wave did not happen. This is the first time on my channel that I have overestimated Republican support in such a fashion. I told you guys, though, that my House prediction did show the Democrats winning, but I decided to scrap it because I didn't believe the numbers. I said that in my video yesterday, or 2 days ago, that my final prediction, the one that I calculated based off of expert rating and prediction and factors, showed the Democrats winning the House, but simply I didn't believe the numbers. And I still do not necessarily believe Democrats will win control of the House, but the fact that it's even up for odds tells me that there was not a single performance that is indicating a red wave. Republicans did have victories last evening, but so did Democrats. Democrats and Republicans have both flipped seats. Democrats, quite frankly, should not have been able to flip just one. In 2018, the Democrats did not lose a single seat that they held. Did not lose a single seat. Not one Democratic incumbent was defeated. In 2022, numerous incumbent Republicans were defeated. In addition to that, I think, looking at some of these more surprising races, let's take a look. For instance, in Maine's 2nd Congressional District, this is one where Jared Golden right now is leading by about 5 points. It looks like he's on track for victory. We look at some other states too, where we have, for instance, in Iowa's 3rd District. This one should not have been this competitive. It should have been a GOP automatic pickup. Should have been called hours ago, 12 hours ago at that, right? At midnight, at the latest in 2022. But the real big shocker actually comes down to the state of Colorado, where we see Lauren Boebert, a Republican who won this district in 2018 by 8, won re-election in 2020 despite Biden only losing this district by 3. I mean, looking at her House margin in 2020, you would expect her to be doing very well this midterm election. She outran Trump by 3 points. Biden lost by 3, she won by 6. But fast forward to 2022, what happens? Yes, redistricting made a role, but what it actually did, get this, believe it or not, made it a more Republican district. The Democrat here is on track for victory. And based off of the results that we have seen, it looks like he very well may win. Lauren Boebert is one of the most outspoken and extreme Republicans in the House. This was a very solid district for the GOP on purpose by the redistricting committee. Colorado's 3rd was made so that Republicans would win it. Lauren Boebert should have been one of the safer members of the House last evening, and it looks like she might lose. And it doesn't end with just her. Looking at a number of races, Democrats actually, again, had pickups. You can see in some of these states, Democrats flipped districts that should not have gone their way. Democrats took regions, for instance, Ohio's 1st. Steve Chabot, I think that's how you say it, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I should know his name. He's a swing district Republican who I've mentioned before. Regardless, though, a 5-point margin to victory for Democrats in a district with a Republican incumbent. In addition to that, Ohio's map is a gerrymander. It was not made for Democrats to win. You look over, right? Washington's 3rd district. What's happening here? Republicans are down 6 points. This Republicans were supposed to win here, right? California's 41st. Republicans are the incumbent. They were expected to win here too. Democrats now lead by 12. You can see some of these races where Republicans were expected to win easily that Republicans still have yet to see calls. Colorado's 3rd was one of them where Democrats are leading. I mean, just looking up across the country, there are parts of our map that simply do not make sense. There are results here that completely defy what we expected to see last evening. And if any pundits or pollsters are to be vindicated today, it might be NBC News or Morning Consult. Not any of the other ones. Because it does not look like Republicans are on track to win the national popular vote. It does not look like they are on track to win the national popular vote as of right now. We don't have all of the results. We don't have the final numbers. Some states have still a lot of ballots to be counted. But to be clear, last evening should have been a complete and total rejection of the Democratic Party, and it was exactly the opposite. Races that were meant to go to the to the Republicans, many of them went to the Democrats. You look at some of these competitive races, and I say competitive, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm doing air quotes here. Because, for instance, you have New Hampshire's 1st, where the Democrats were supposed to potentially even lose, weren't the favorites by Election Day. They won by 8. They were supposed to lose Maine's 2nd district. It looks like here they're on track to win by at least 5. And they do have ranked choice voting, so we'll head off into a second round, but Jared Golden is right there. You head over to some other parts of the country. You can see that in New Mexico's 2nd, the Democrat, where it looks like the Secretary of State website says there's no votes left to be counted, but that is yet to be confirmed. the Democrat is winning here. This is a district that flipped back to the Republicans by 7 points, 6 points in 2020, yet flipped back to the Democrats in 2022. I mean, just think about these circumstances that lead to Democrats doing so well across these states. How is that even possible? It is only possible with a year that is conducive to Democratic victories, and that's exactly what they got. The Senate is a similar story. Washington was not even close. Do you remember the polls that said that she was going to win by just a point or potentially even lose? Yeah, we're laughing at that now because Patty Murray just won this race by 14 points. Interesting, right? Republicans did have their victories, though, in Iowa. They won, but again, we knew that. We knew they would win in Ohio. We projected it to be likely. It was likely. North Carolina, Republicans actually were overestimated on my end. In Florida, I underestimated Republicans here, but then again, so did a lot of other people. I think also what we saw in the state of Utah is a shocking result, that Mike Lee only defeated Evan McClellan by about 14 points. I didn't expect this race to be that close. I thought it was going to be safe red. I thought there was no chance in hell that Mike Lee was going to at all be in a competitive race, and yet that's exactly what happened. I mean, just looking up across the country, it is clear that the Democratic Party did a lot right last evening. In Arizona, they currently lead. They're down in Nevada, but we still have a lot of mail-in ballots to be counted, and they can be accepted up to 4 days past the election, meaning that if they're postmarked by Election Day, if they are received within 4 days, they can be counted. So there's a lot left to be seen. Do you remember how long Nevada took back in 2020? Same thing now. It's a universal mail-in ballot state, which means everybody gets a ballot, which means a lot more people voting by mail. So right now, I would say there is no projection to be made, but clearly there is an advantage for the GOP, but that absolutely can be overcome. Looking at Arizona, though, Democrats lead by 5 points. 5 percentage points. It's crazy to think about, right? Georgia, Warnock, Herschel Walker heading to a runoff election. That will be decided in December. The bad news for the GOP, they won't have Brian Kemp's 7-8 point victory to try to carry Herschel Walker across the finish line. It will solely be about Walker and Warnock. And quite frankly, Warnock is already leading that race. Like I told you, Pennsylvania has flipped. Wisconsin is yet to be called. You look at the individual, race breakdown here. Mandela Barnes, Ron Johnson in a 1-point race. I think Ron Johnson wins. We've already seen some projections from websites like Decision.HQ, which have projected that Ron Johnson wins. But Ron Johnson should have absolutely won by more than a point. Absolutely should have won by more than a point. And in New Hampshire, a race that was supposedly going to be competitive. I had it as a tilt blue. I believed the numbers last minute. Maggie Hassan won by 10. I mean, just think about how good these races went for Democrats. They were expected to potentially even lose New Hampshire. They won by 10. They were projected to lose Pennsylvania. They won by 5. They're going to win by 5. Wisconsin was supposed to be solid for the GOP. They're winning by less than a point, right? North Carolina was supposed to be likely. It's a 4-point race. Georgia was supposed to go to Walker, according to some. Not personally. I thought it would go to a runoff and then to Warnock. But, what you find here is that Warnock is leading. Kelly is leading. Cortez Masto is not doomed, right? So many good results for the Democratic Party. They solidify Colorado. People thought maybe Joe O'Dea, as a pro-choice Republican, the only one on the ballot in the Senate races here, would make a move and actually shock the country. You know what happened is the exact opposite. Michael Bennet won by 12, absolutely obliterated the GOP. And in the governor races, again, just to recount, I mean, what we are seeing is just such a successful evening for Democrats that can still be salvaged for Republicans. Don't get me wrong. We haven't called Arizona, and quite frankly, I think Kari Lake is still on track for victory, but yet to be seen, right, depending on the results of Maricopa and what we still have to count. But Georgia went to the GOP, okay? So they have that. Kansas went to the Democrats. We're not getting that. Maine went to the Democrats. Michigan went to the Democrats. Nevada, they could still very well win. What you're finding here is that Steve Sisolak, as the incumbent Democratic governor, is running behind Cortez Masto by about 2 points, which means if she barely wins, he barely loses. So that actually would be a trade-off for Democrats. Win one, lose the other. New Mexico goes to the Democrats. New York goes to the Democrats. Oregon still seems to be pretty competitive. Might still be some outstanding vote here for the Republican Party. They might be a bit more optimistic, but yet to be seen. Pennsylvania went to the Democrats. Texas went to the Republicans. Wisconsin went to the Democrats. So not that much in terms of what they can get. But the Senate isn't out of play for the GOP. If we're being entirely honest about it, it is not out of play. But Democrats definitely have a lot better chance. Because not only do they have the majority now, but they can afford to lose a seat. Because they have just won Pennsylvania. And if it heads to a runoff in Georgia, quite frankly, I think the Democrats win it as well. So there's a lot of opportunities here for Democrats. Slim chance for Republicans in the Senate. The House is a much more likely outcome, I should say, for the Republicans. I'm still betting the Republicans win control of the House. But this is the first time this entire election cycle where I have been truly, truly, truly doubtful. I was before. After the special elections, I thought there would be a possibility that Democrats did win the House, but I did not think it was this possible. What the results last night proved to me is that sometimes the polls underestimate Democrats. As much as that has not been the narrative, and one that was really hard to believe, even though we saw it in the special elections, we paid no mention. I mean, I mentioned it just because I thought it was important. And it was what I told you guys. The one thing when I made my final discussion about these races, the one thing that made me apprehensive about calling the House for the Republicans solidly was those special elections. The ones that had polls that said Democrats were going to lose by 8 to 9 points, and they ended up winning. Those are the results and the inaccuracies that made me question the national numbers. But it simply didn't make sense. Democrats were not underestimated in 2016, barely in 2018 by less than a point, which wouldn't have been enough to overcome the Republican advantages across these states. And then in 2020, a severe overestimation for Democrats, especially on the House level. Well, it looks like the opposite happened. It looks like Democrats were the ones who were underestimated. And quite frankly, last night was a disaster for the Republican Party. And that's the unfortunate reality of what happens when a Supreme Court intervenes in a midterm election, stripping the rights away from half of the country of a legal right to abortion, and people are angry. I think if this race had not been so, these midterm elections had not been so closely associated with the issue of abortion, that the red wave would have happened. But unfortunately for the GOP, they've taken the wrong side of the American public on that issue, amongst, quite frankly, many others that are now at stake with the United States Supreme Court. So the House results, the Senate results, the governor results all tell us one thing. The Democrats outperformed significantly and may be on track for victory in numerous other competitive races amongst the many that they have already won, which means the red wave simply did not happen. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.